Great. So let me start off with you, Martin. We were having a conversation yesterday on this particular issue. And then in Parliament, the NPP group doesn't show up and they accuse the Speaker of siding with the NDC to frustrate government business. What's your take on what transpired in Parliament yesterday, Martin?
Yes, so two questions.
I appreciate the invitation.
The first one, the accusation. The accusation is a deflection. They were trying, Afro Markin was trying to deflect the people's attention from the low numbers they have. My understanding of everything that went on yesterday was that the NPP didn't have the numbers. By some account, they were only 31. Even if you dispute 31, bottom line is that they didn't have numbers. The NDC outnumbered them. So they saw that if they went in, they wouldn't succeed. They wouldn't be able to get any decision through. So they chose not to go in. So this theatricals, that is, the Speaker is supervising, a disobedience of the Supreme Court decision, etc., is just a way to deflect attention from the fact that they couldn't marshal enough numbers. They couldn't marshal enough numbers. So what else do we expect? So it dovetails into the second question. What happened inside Parliament? Yes, the Speaker sat, and once the minority, let's call them the NPP, once the NPP failed to show up, he said there was no business to transact because there was nothing, no order paper. And Parliament uses the order paper to transact business that the business committee did not sit. So the question Afenyo should be asking is that, did he convene a business committee meeting? Did Afenyo convene a business committee meeting? And what happened there? And where is the order paper? So if there's no order paper, the Speaker is within his rights to say he would adjourn indefinitely again. So that is it. So the kernel of this matter is that the NPP didn't have the numbers. So they came to do some theatricals to deflect attention from their failure to marshal their numbers. And this morning, Winston, you made a very poignant point that there are deep fractures, deep craters within the NPP camp. That's how come they couldn't marshal the numbers. That's the main thing we should be looking at, rather than deflecting attention and saying Speaker who is not obeying the Supreme Court decisions. That's a charade. Okay. It's a charade, a sham of the weakest order. Please,
let me bring in
their numbers. That is where we should concentrate.
Let me bring in Kofi Bentil at this point, because yesterday the NPP members still had their name tags on the right-hand side of the Speaker, an indication that if they had shown up, they were in the majority, and so that in itself would have been a situation where you would say, well, the Speaker or Parliament is going according to the Supreme Court, and so Parliament is not in any way disobeying the Supreme Court, isn't it?
Oh, some said, sorry, I said Samson. Winston. So, yes, we were told that they had their names on the right side, which means they were supposed to be in the majority.
Yeah.
But, everybody seems, or some commentators seem, to be ignoring the fact of what really happened. And the fact of what really happened is that even though they had their names at the majority side, the NDC MPs went and occupied that space. Please, can you confirm that to the public? Is that what happened?
Yes, that's what happened.
Thank you. And, when we are doing some of these analysis, we should first face the fact. Facts are sacred. And then we proceed from there. As for the conjecture, that's up to everybody. So here is what happened. Their name tags were on the majority side. Then the NDC MPs went and occupied that side. Now, what did you expect to happen? A number of things could have happened. They could have gone in there and gone to occupy the minority side, which would have been an affront to the Supreme Court ruling. And don't tell me that seating is not important. In this country, in our parliament, in the context of what is happening, seating is important. Or they could have gone in and insisted on going to sit on the majority side. And in this country, in this parliament, we have had fisticuffs, we have had scuffles, we have had grown men fighting and shouting. We have had the military enter parliament. So you can't tell me that it won't happen again. I was on Newsfire recently, and Samson will remind you, if anybody watched, and I said, this will happen. And because this will happen, I think that the speaker should make a clear statement that I said, based on my understanding of the Constitution, that the 4 MPs have vacated their seats, and therefore the majority-minority situation has shifted. That's what he said. But because of what the Supreme Court has ruled, or the order from the Supreme Court, and he can make it clear that he disagrees with it, but in the spirit of greater peace, in the spirit of respecting the Constitution, and in the spirit of acknowledging that the Supreme Court has the authority to interpret the Constitution, he should order that the status quo ante be restored. Then this will not have happened. Samson said, no, let them go and let's see whether anybody is going to resist them. That is what has happened. My point was, if we have leadership in this country, we shouldn't leave a situation to be resolved by fisticuffs. Okay. That's not what civilized people do.
Yeah, but Kofi couldn't.
Let me learn.
Okay, so please go ahead.
What we are seeing here, okay, unfortunately, is a result of the leadership in Parliament not being clear that they respect the orders of the Supreme Court, even if they disagree with it. Yes.
Now, Kofi, the Alexa Apenyomarking has indicated that the Speaker said the Clerk of Parliament would ensure that they sit at his right side, which is the majority. So even if the NDC went into the chamber and occupied the majority seat, couldn't the NPP have drawn the Speaker's attention to the fact that we are supposed to be on your right? They have occupied that. Can you direct them so that then the Speaker is forced to make a decision on who is the majority and who is the minority in the public eye once and for all?
Are you telling me that the Speaker and the Clerk of Parliament were not aware of what was physically going on happening in Parliament? Are you telling me that if the NPP does not draw the attention of the Speaker of what is happening in his Parliament, he does not see, does not hear, does not know? If the Supreme Court has made an order and the Speaker is refusing to give it full effect, I said full effect, what will a notice from the NPP do? Look, again, and please let me make this disclaimer here. I have had a small discussion with the Speaker, and I do understand the position he took before the Supreme Court made the ruling. And I agree with him that, given what the Constitution was, I think he made a fair conclusion or ruling. But I disagree with him that if the Supreme Court has said move the other way, it is an interference of Parliament. If you remember, earlier on, the argument was that the Supreme Court did not have jurisdiction over this matter because it was not an interpretation issue. I insisted it was an interpretation issue. Now everybody has agreed that it's a constitutional interpretation issue, and so the Supreme Court has jurisdiction. Having the jurisdiction means they can make the ruling they have made. Whether you agree with it or not, we all have agreed that you should respect what the Supreme Court says. My point is, if the Speaker has not made a clear statement to that effect, but made statements skirting the issue and making pronouncements to the effect that the Supreme Court is trying to interfere with the processes of Parliament, the Speaker is engaging in a situation where he is empowering the kind of situation that is going on. This Speaker, Abang is my favorite Speaker. He takes action. And some of these actions, when you take them, it creates these ugly noises. But I think the ugly noises are useful if they will lead to a better democracy. And I think there's an opportunity we have to clarify what it means to vacate your seat in Parliament. So I'm not really knocking the Speaker. What I'm saying is that I disagree with his handling of the situation. And his handling of the situation is what has led to this present chaos. Okay. And I think he should and can handle it better. So it is not for NPP to tell the Speaker that they are going to sit in the wrong place. They are the people in charge of Parliament, the clerk and the Speaker and his team. They can see, they can hear, they know what is going on. What I said on Newsfile is that this is what leadership must prevent. If they did not prevent it, it is not a fault of the NPP. It is the failure of leadership in Parliament that is causing what is causing. And they can fix it very easily if they want to fix it.
Okay, let me bring in Martin. So before I bring in to look at how we can resolve all of this. But Martin, I asked Kofi Bento the question, couldn't the NPP have drawn the Speaker's attention in the chamber to the fact that we are the majority, and so the NDC is occupying our place, and get the Speaker to resolve it once and for all?
Absolutely, Winston. Absolutely. That was what was required to be done. Look, listen, Kofi is my lawyer, right? Yeah, I had to appear before the BNI for some comments. Kofi represented me. But this one, I totally disagree, okay, with Kofi on what he's saying. I'm telling Winston that the bottom line is that they didn't have the numbers, so they sought something, a deflection. Because they had to go in there, even if all of them didn't want to enter, so that maybe if there was a crowd, it could easily degenerate. They could have stood outside, then Apenu and maybe three of the other leaders would go with him, then they would make their representation. You think Apenu didn't know how to do this? And in actual fact, look, they could have stood as majority. They could have stood on the left side of the Speaker and so transacted business. What is it about sitting on the right? What is there? It's about the business. Substance over form. Substance over form. They knew all of this. I don't know if it's a lawyer, but the reason they didn't do all of this is that they didn't have the numbers. So they sought to avoid an embarrassment. That's how come they created this whole confusion. The Speaker is not disobeying the Supreme Court decision. He is not. The NPP didn't have the numbers, and so they created this situation so that we would take attention from the fact that they can't marshal enough numbers because there are deep cracks within their ranks. That is the bottom matter.
Okay. Please hold on, Kofi and Martin, for me. Let me bring in Austin Game at this point, who is a labor expert and analyst. Let's look at the way forward. How do we resolve this? Because there's business to be done in Parliament, and unfortunately, Parliament has been adjourned indefinitely again. Mr. Game, once again, thank you very much for joining us. So before we get into the resolution and all, let's have your take on what you make of what's been happening in Parliament over the last 4 weeks.
Thank you, Winston and your colleagues. You see, having actively participated in the business of Parliament before, I can recall the necessity for rules of procedure in the House. You know, it is very necessary that every deliberative body, such as Parliament, be governed by rules of procedure in order that the will of a majority of its members may be determined and revealed in an orderly manner. That is the cardinal principles underpinning the need for rules of procedure in the House. Just like you have rules in court and so forth and so on. Now, the purpose of these rules is to enable Parliament to be business-like, to determine priorities concerning affairs of state, and orderly and methodical manner in which they satisfy their clients, being the constituents and the state. That is what Parliament's procedure and its rule in all this matter is supposed to be. The Parliament generally is expected to be to subserve. Subserve is a jargon of Parliament which is intended to promote the welfare, means of carrying out the business for the House, for constituents, for Ghana as a nation. That is what they are supposed to be doing. to restrain itself from straying into areas that are not determined for them, because everybody has a role. You know, their role is to ensure that they facilitate and not to obstruct. You know, and this deliberative business is not negotiable. It's not transferable. No, the executive cannot do the deliberative business of Parliament. Neither can Supreme Court do the deliberative business of Parliament. The checks and balances which are allowed constitutionally are there. We can once a while as a people falter, stray into areas, gray areas, and you can be brought back, you know, by the other arm of governance, which is the Supreme Court. Now, normally, as I know it, the constitutional right of a state legislature to control its own procedure. That is the reason why Parliament itself should not be in a hurry to go into the other arms for guidance. They are not supposed to be the one guiding them. That's why generally it is said that they are the masters of their own rules and procedures and what they conduct themselves to. But coming to the substantive matter,
sure.
The reality here is that Parliament has leadership, and the leadership of Parliament is very vital to the success of Parliament in whole. Both people who are being described as minority and majority have key roles to play, and they are not servants to one another. The majority does not disturb the role of minority, neither does the minority disturb the role of the majority. Okay. They are all members of Parliament to start with.
Sure.
Only that everybody, and you cannot be in the leadership at a go. That is why you have leaders. Unfortunately, it appears the key role of the leaders have been neglected, and they are now engaged in an unnecessary blame game, and the public has joined in the fray. We are all looking for somebody to blame, and the angle we are holding cannot resolve this matter. Normally, matters of this nature cannot be resolved in Supreme Court. Normally, matters of this nature cannot even be resolved by arbitration, because arbitration will produce a winner and a loser.
Okay.
And Supreme Court to produce a winner and a loser.
So how do you resolve it?
Losers do not support winners to rejoice. That is what is creating the problem now.
Okay.
So what we need is a civilized, facilitated mediation. You need a mediator who is endowed with a process to facilitate how this matter can be resolved.
Okay.
I saw it some 3-4 weeks ago that this problem will persist, cannot be resolved. It will be partisan leading kind of thing. So I wrote to them and suggested to the Speaker, to Afenyomakins, to Atu, that look, you are engrossed in this matter. You cannot help yourself. You need help. I will avail myself to you. I will spend 1.5 hours with you, the minority people. I will spend 1.5 hours with you, majority people, and I will engage the Speaker and bring the 2-3 sides together. Within a maximum period of 3 hours, we can go through a process to have this matter resolved.
Okay.
But I'm a mediator. I do it without and within. And, well, they did not get back to me. Yesterday, I do know that some of them have started talking to me, both by phone and by WhatsApp. We've been engaging.
Okay.
And I'm waiting for them to be, because they might be willing that they want the matter resolved.
Okay.
They must be willing. Once they are willing, I guarantee you it can be resolved within 3 hours.
So, without mentioning names, when you say some of them have been talking to you, do I get the impression that both the majority and the minority have reached out to you to mediate?
No, for now, one side has reached out to me that they'll be amenable and willing to have this matter resolved, because I guarantee you the big people who have been going to them, they can only go and lament and express concerns, but they are not experts. They are not mediators. They are not mediators. They cannot mediate in this matter. And you don't need a body that will go there and talk about why don't you apologize, why don't you do this, why don't you do that. It cannot be done. Okay. Nobody is willing to give up. But a mediator who understands the processes will take them through the stages within some hours, because I don't need more than 1.5 hours to get the thought of the NPP leadership or the NDC leadership and bring them. But to me, the speaker is not so much the matter, because the speaker only gives whatever expression that you want to give to it. He has said it. You've gone somewhere. He's not a member of parliament, so he cannot be the one deciding for them. It's for the leaders to go to the speaker if they can, put themselves down and they can discuss it. It has been done before, so it can always be done. I think that they need a help, and I'm available if they are willing. Some hours, we should be able to resolve this matter.
And do you mind sharing the side that contacted you with us?
Oh no! If I do that, I'm a mediator. Okay. Mediators don't do that.
I get you. Now, what would constitute a win-win situation in this impasse?
This is going to be more than. It's not going to be. It's a mutually beneficial issue. Both parties will gain. Win-win will denote a draw, so it's not going to be a draw. It's going to be mutually beneficial to the state and to they as leaders.
What would constitute that mutually beneficial, thing that you want to do? What would constitute that?
You see, nobody can stand in tongues and removing tongues. It will break you back. Sure. All we need to do is we will set up what you want to describe as cardinal rules that will govern the procedure of the mediation process. And once I prepare them and they have agreed to sign a consent for mediation process, the decision is theirs, not mine. I'm not going to be the one making the decision for them that you are right, you are wrong. They can concede by saying that, well, I shouldn't have even bothered by doing ABC. I shouldn't also have done ABC. All of us are members of parliament, because right now they are going to set themselves up for both the public and the judiciary often and often to be intervening in their matters, even if they are not called upon, because they have lowered the bar themselves. Parliament has a procedure. They must stay with the procedure within the confines of the Constitution of Ghana.
Okay.
So that's how it's done in every country. So I think that for now, where we'll concentrate on is what is important to them about this issue. They will have to not to stay in the past, move on along the line. Me as a mediator, I know precisely the processes I'll take them through.
Okay.
And I guarantee you, within 3 hours, meeting them, they will have this matter resolved.
Now, Mr. Game, before I bring Martin and Kofi in, so we wrap up the conversation, because you've been talking about dealing with the NPP and NDC group, and then you bring in the speaker. But we know also that these parties or these groups in Parliament are largely controlled by their mother parties, as in the NPP itself and the NDC. These two political parties actually influence the members of Parliament. Will they also be part of the mediation, or they are not important at this point?
The parties that will participate in the pre-mediation, when I say I'll meet the two parties separately, yes, we call it pre-mediation meeting. The pre-mediation meeting, whoever is the decision maker to have the matter resolved will have to be party to the process.
Okay.
So if there is anybody, be it Baumia, be it John Mahama, that will be the one behind the scene to participate, then they will have to be at the meeting.
Okay.
Because as a mediator, I will ask for those who have the authority to resolve the matter to be present at the pre-meeting and the plenary session.
Okay. Mr. Gam, please hold on 1 minute for me. I'll get back to you so we wrap it up. But let me get the thoughts of Kofi Bentil and Martin Pebu. Let me start with you, Kofi. You've heard from what Mr. Austin Game said. One of the sides is reached out. In fact, he had earlier reached out to all sides, but it looks like there's a very small problem. It can be resolved, in no time, isn't it, Kofi? Hello, Kofi. Okay, then let me bring in Martin. Martin, are you still on?
Yes, I'm on, Winston.
Yes, Martin, listening to Austin Gam, it looks like this is not any difficult issue. It's something that should be resolved in no time, in a day, once members of parliament and speaker are willing to cooperate, isn't it?
Yeah, let's put it this way. Mr. Game, the respected mediator and arbitrator, yes, he has something to say. Except that, let me add that when he finally gets it resolved, like the way you say, in 3 hours, okay, or 1 day, it's not the beginning and the end. It's because all this while we've been resolving it. So the resolution is a process. It's not a one-day event. So this conversation we're even having now feeds into the resolution. We are influencing the parliamentarians. We are influencing the party leaders. So the conversation we've been having for the past weeks has been the resolution. So the resolution has been coming from different quarters and from different perspectives. So in the event that he finishes with them in 1 day, it will be wrong to say that it's Mr. Game who has resolved it. No, it's an amalgamation of all the various perspectives and various efforts that have resulted in such a resolution. Because don't forget, even the Council of State went to the Speaker and then they had a conversation. You see, it has helped the Speaker to move a bit, etc. So many efforts have been made. So this is an amalgamation of all the efforts, but not the singular effort of one mediator in 1 day. Okay, that's the way I see it. And also, as I said, Winston, let's drum it very well, because what I don't like is politicians trying to, kind of deceive us all the time. Yes, gaslighting us. I told you from the beginning of this conversation that yesterday what I saw, this matter is essentially resolved, right? If only the NPP can marshal their numbers to do the business. But here is the case, they can't marshal their numbers. That is how come then they have to go and, let's put it plainly, bluntly, go and beg the minority, that's the NDC, and beg speaker. Yes, because they will need these people to help them. Because you know that at this time, most MPs would rather be in the constituency. And you also know that by the rules of parliament, even if there are only 2 of them gathered, and nobody raises an issue of quorum, a lot of the business can go through, right? So it's to that extent that they need NDC. Otherwise, if they think they can have 138 members in parliament every day, then they don't need the NDC. The matter is resolved.
Okay. Kofi, what do you say?
Right. So I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, I can hear you.
So what my brother Martin is saying is actually the easiest solution to the problem, if indeed he is right. If it is true that the only reason why the NPP is refusing to go into parliament is that they cannot marshal the numbers, then the easiest thing to do would be for the NDC to call their bluff and to not go and sit in the majority side, sit in the minority side, let the NPP go and occupy the majority side, and let's see whether they will come or not. That will be the easiest way. So, Martin, it's conjecture. If truly, and maybe you are right, the NPP cannot find the numbers, then the easiest thing would be for the NDC to go and sit where they have to sit, and then let the NPP refuse to come. Then we'll be clear what the problem is. So, on that score, I disagree with you that that is the issue. Even if that is the issue, it has been subordinated to this antic by the NDC. So please, the heart of the matter, the elephant in the room, is that there must be a clear statement made and a clear order given from the office of the Speaker. The Speaker and the clerk and their staff control Parliament, and they have marshals that can make sure that things happen. If the Speaker today says that, please, we will respect the Supreme Court, so until further notice, the status quo ante is restored. Sit where you have to sit and make sure the clerk does it, make sure the marshals enforce that. They would expose the NPP, and then we'll know whether they have the numbers or they don't have the numbers. If that is not done, that will continue to remain the main problem in the House. I do not doubt Mr. Austin Game's capabilities. He has proved himself as one of the foremost industrial mediators in Ghana today. I, however, doubt that he can solve this matter in 3 hours. I don't even think he can get the people who he needs to get to the table in 3 hours. We simplify things too much. This is a deep political problem. It has connections, Winston, like you are saying, into the political parties. There are internal NPP fights going on over this independent issues, which themselves have an issue. And then you have, between the parties, NPP and NDC, you've heard NDC talk about how they are going to repeal laws and they are going to do this and this and this and this. There are deep issues, afoot. And you have a situation where when politicians want to fight their political fights, and they have had a situation where the Speaker's statements, works in their favor, and they have said it to the country, we will not give up our hard-won majority easily. I don't think that 3 hours of talking is going to resolve that. We need to go to the root of the matter.
All right.
Which is why we do have a Supreme Court. Which is why even if people disagree and they go to court and the court says this is what it is, it has to be so. In every house, you have to have elders. You don't always have to agree with them. But for the sake of peace, for the sake of order, the way that enlightened people operate is that even if you disagree with something, you respect the authority. So look, this is not one of those simple things we can deal with in 3 hours.
All right.
I will suggest to the Speaker that if indeed Mr. Game is available and can do it in 3 hours, he should give him 6 hours and let him resolve it within 1 day. But I don't think it will be resolved. What will resolve this matter is a clear statement from the Speaker that he will respect the order of the Supreme Court even though he disagrees with it, and let the status quo ante remain. Let the minority sit in the minority part, and let us see whether these MPP will be able to find the numbers to come into Parliament. If that happens, the matter is resolved.
Thank you very much, Kofi. Yes, Mr. Game, finally.
I appreciate the concerns raised by the two colleagues there. However, let me start this way first. One, Speaker is not a member of Parliament. He can have his press conference like he did, but that has no bearing on Parliament decision at all. Now, the bearing it may have is neither here nor there. It's only the House of Parliament that can determine, and the Speaker is only obliged to put the question for a solution. That's number one. Therefore, the solution to the matter lies with the leadership of the House. If there will be outside influence, that's why I said, as a mediator, when I'm having my pre-meetings, the parties who have the authority to determine the outcome of the matter will have to be present.
Okay.
And that I will know. As a mediator, tomorrow, by next week, early next week, I'll be on my way outside this country to go and mediate in a matter outside. If Ghanaians don't know much about mediation, it's a different matter.
All right.
Mediation is not supposed to be 10 hours. It's supposed to be 90 minutes, maximum 2 hours. It's because we don't know the processes. But I appreciate the point raised by both Kofi and Martin, but that notwithstanding, I guarantee you, if the parties are willing to have the matter resolved, it can be resolved within hours.
All right. Austin Game, thank you very, very much for joining us. Kofi Bentil, thank you also, and Martin Kpebu, both legal practitioners, and Austin Game, a labor analyst and mediation expert.